lovely rose garden, and welcome to Roselin Reviews. I'm Avalon Roselin, indie author, and your candidate to take the throne for the evening. The False Prince by Jennifer A. Nielsen was a requested review by my supporter, Jeanet Henning. If there's a book you want me to read and review in a full video, consider becoming a supporter on Ko-fi or Patreon today. Links are in the description. When Jeanet made her request, she informed me that although The False Prince is the first in a series, it does work as a standalone novel, because I typically struggle with series of books, unless it's a manga with 12 or fewer volumes, or if I'm reading a series I already read as a kid. Whether or not I continue a series at this point really has nothing to do with how much I like it, and more with the question of, has this become a hyperfixation, which I have very little control over. I half read and half listened to The False Prince on audiobook to help with the 2 hours I spend commuting every day, and I think that really helped. So perhaps there is hope for me to read the rest of the Ascendant series. The False Prince is exactly the kind of story that I love, and the main character is exactly the kind of lead I enjoy in a first-person point-of-view narration style. Sage is one of 4 boys picked up by a nobleman named Connor for the purpose of being trained into the role of the presumed dead younger prince of the kingdom of Carthia in order to avoid a civil war. You see, the king, queen, and crown prince have all died very suddenly, and only a select few nobles know this fact. But it's about to become apparent once court reconvenes, and the nobles will tear the country apart in their respective bids to claim the throne for themselves. A blood heir is needed, but young Prince Jerin hasn't been seen in years since his ship was attacked by pirates, though the king and queen refused to give up hope that he had survived. Hence Connor's plan: spend 2 weeks training up the boys to be potential pretenders to the throne, and select the one that fits the role the best at the end. The ones who don't, well, only 3 of them even make it to his estate to try. The fact that one of the boys is killed off for real almost immediately sets very clear stakes and demands the reader's attention. There is no option to back out. Sage, Roden, and Tobias need to prove that they are the best impersonator of Prince Jerin, or they will die trying. It isn't as if they have anything to go back to, all of them having been brought from orphanages around Carthia. But is it possible for them to learn enough to fool the court, the princess formerly betrothed to the crown prince, and the people of Carthia in just 2 weeks? Connor swears he will be there to guide the false prince, purely out of a sense of patriotism, and most definitely not so he can rule the country from behind the scenes. Sage is one of those too clever for his own good kind of characters, who is able to immediately see Connor for what he is, just another power-hungry noble. But he's in this game now, and he's going to find a way to win. It's just that what winning means to Connor and what winning means to Sage are 2 different things. When Jeanet was recommending it to me, she mentioned wishing that she had found it after Percy Jackson. And while I would not say that Sage and Percy are super similar, I think they're similar enough that they'd either be partners in crime or the bitterest enemies immediately. I frequently found Sage's sassy remarks in both dialogue and narration to be thoroughly entertaining, to the point that I wanted to read them out loud to my husband. His introduction is also fantastic, critiquing his theft of a roast as the theft is happening, and making notes on what he could do better the next time he steals meat. It certainly helped that as I was reading this book, the Little Shadows arc of Cinderella Boy was coming out, and I started seeing Sage as Victorian pickpocket buddy in my head. The attitude definitely fit. Absolutely devastating to have a female love interest for him appear, though thankfully there is no romance in The False Prince. The threat of a developing romance is one of the few things holding me back from continuing the series. Now, obviously, as an adult who has read many books, I knew that of course Sage would find a way to be successful. But there was some legitimate suspense in which of the 3 boys would be chosen for Connor's plan, and the other two boys were also well-rounded and clearly had their own motivation beyond just not dying. They also made up an interesting trio, with Roden being the best physically speaking, Tobias having more education and knowledge, and Sage being the troublemaker who best matched Prince Jaren's personality. Because apparently Prince Jaren was also a little shit. I love trios of characters that sort of slot into body, mind, and heart roles, although this certainly isn't your typical trio since they are all working against each other and each, at varying points throughout the story, are believably in the lead. I won't spoil who ultimately was chosen by Connor, at least not yet, but I appreciate that Nielsen put some real effort into making each of the three candidates viable and had them each specializing in different areas and working with different members of Connor's staff. For instance, Cregan hates Sage, to the point of violence, but works with Roden to further enhance his advantages in things like swordsmanship. Sage is particularly close with Mott, who is legitimately rooting for him to win, even if he is ultimately in Connor's employ and will follow his orders first and foremost. And Tobias, well, he has his own plans. Rounding out the cast is Imogen, a mute servant girl in Connor's employ who Sage defends when she is mistreated, only to then have to come to terms with the fact that his apparent favoring of her puts her in more danger from abuse by Connor's other servants. I like Imogen just fine as a character, but it's the romance I sense developing between her and Sage that makes me nervous because, well, I'm just not invested in Sage having a romantic relationship unless it's with a blonde twink. I think that, and the death of the fourth boy, Latimer, early on, establishes the tone and stakes very well. The False Prince doesn't pull punches or sugarcoat anything for its readers, and by doing so shows a level of respect for the intelligence and maturity of its audience. I've mentioned this book is for 10 to 14-year-olds, right? No? Well, it is. It's what I would call late middle grade / early YA, in the same area as Percy Jackson, Sir Callie, or Witchlings. So my preferred age range, where there are more mature themes but not a huge emphasis on the characters being sexually attracted to one another. Poor Imogen. I feel like I'm really harping on a point with her potential future romance with Sage that isn't even a real issue in this book. Imogen herself is really interesting, and I do hope that there are more scenes with her to flesh out her future motivations and goals beyond the resolution to her story in this book. There is one thing about this book that I really don't know how I feel about, and in order to discuss that, I will have to reveal a major spoiler. So, cue the warning.
Thank you for watching this far into the video. There are spoilers ahead. If you would rather enjoy this media without spoilers, please stop here. But before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the links in the description for other ways that you can support Roselin Books, such as purchasing my books or becoming a supporter on Patreon or Ko-fi. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you again soon.
All right, so the final act of the book. First, I do want to say it's good. I don't think it derails the rest of the book or it's a twist for the sake of a twist. If you're paying attention, I'm sure you can pick up on the clues. And if you're a seasoned reader, you're probably anticipating it. Readers in the target demographic may be surprised, but I certainly don't think they'd be disappointed. I'm just not sure how I feel about it, in part because I was wondering for so long if it would turn out that one of the boys really was Prince Jaren. And of course, Sage is the prince. I think if Connor had realized who Sage was and chosen him as the winner of the contest because of it, as I thought might nearly happen at one point, I wouldn't have liked this ending as much. However, Roden is actually the orphan who wins the competition and is taken to court to be presented as the heir to the throne, while Sage and Tobias have to both save their lives and Sage/Jaren is determined to get vengeance upon Connor for attempting to kill him and actually killing the rest of the royal family. I think this might be one of those books to reread with the twist in mind, because there were times that I was wondering what exactly Sage was looking for when he was roaming Connor's estate at night. Sure, secret passages and a way out, should things take a turn for the worse, makes sense, but now that I know he was actually looking for evidence of Connor's misdeeds, I wonder what else I might notice on a reread. And now knowing his true identity, I think that hearing the news of the royal family's deaths would probably hit differently. At first, the impression the reader is meant to get is that he's considering his own mortality and likelihood of assassination if he wins the contest. And yes, that is definitely on his mind. But he's also silently grieving a family he was estranged from for years. There is a lot done right about this twist, like the fact that the reason Jaren's body was never found when his ship was attacked by pirates was because he escaped the ship before it set sail, which is a very Jaren thing to do. Of course, he wouldn't wait around and be sent off to somewhere he didn't want to go. And the king, recognizing that the pirate attack was probably a political ploy to remove him, discusses Jaren staying in hiding as a commoner when he finds him again, giving him a secret way to prove his identity to the court should he ever need to. It's actually kind of a genius plan, but it does still carry emotional weight and fallout for Jaren, as he is, well, never really able to speak to his family again, and then they die before he can ever reconcile. His father attempted to see him, but it was too little too late. Plus, what would have happened if the king's cover, which was not as good as Jaren's, was ever revealed? Sage secretly being Jaren the entire time doesn't remove any narrative stakes or emotional weight from the story. He still has to deal with all the same issues he was already facing, just now with added grief. None of his previous efforts are invalidated either, as he was looking for proof of Connor's guilt the entire time, so his time spent at the estate when he knew the only way the prince could be properly identified the whole time isn't a waste of the reader's time. Also, I've just got to say, some of the scenes in the final act are iconic. Like Jaren honoring his promise to make Connor his head advisor even after knowing what he's done, and then having him arrested immediately. He did technically uphold his end of the bargain, but he also got what he ultimately wanted. Also, I love that a bunch of other nobles also show up to court with their own fake Jarens, to the point that the guards were actively turning them away, so the real Jaren had to sneak in using his knowledge from actually having lived in the castle. That was very clever and shows that despite all his cunning, Connor was not as thoughtful in his plan as he believed himself to be. Also, the more I think about this, the more I find things I actually loved about it, so maybe my feelings aren't as conflicted as I thought. I love that Sage is the one who looks the least like what Connor thinks Jaren should look like. Jaren was last seen years ago at the onset of puberty. A lot can change about a person's appearance, like hair color, which did change. I think Connor also didn't take into consideration the kind of living conditions Jaren would have experienced. Of course Sage is undersized. He's been living as a starving orphan for years. Roden looking the most like what he thinks Jaren should look like, and having the least actual resemblance to the real Jaren, is just chef's kiss perfect. And Mott being the one to realize who Sage was first, and swearing fealty to him? Yes? My gods, I would die for Mott. Easily my favorite supporting character. I love him. The only downside I see to the twist is it relies on the narrator consciously withholding information from the reader, which I suppose does work since Sage is already a schemer and a liar when it suits him, and some scenes can be recontextualized with the additional information without needing to be changed. Sage does have a reaction to hearing about the royals' deaths. He does go for the replica of his sword during training. He does behave the same way he did when he was Prince Jaren, more or less. But I wish there were a few more hints given, especially since this is a book for a younger audience. And maybe there were. Again, I'd have to reread it with the twist in mind to see what all I missed. I get the feeling that the Ascendance trilogy, which is not a trilogy is one of those series that has probably gotten really huge, but I'm coming in too late, so I'm interested to see your thoughts and opinions. Have you read The False Prince? Should I continue the series? Leave a comment below to let me know, and keep growing until next time, Rose Garden.